It's Stevivor's Friendly Fire Show, episode 206 for the start of August 2022. I think that means Gamescom is coming this month. It's been a while, I forget. Okay, I'm one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright, and joining me is the bestest guy in the world, my friend for 10 years and like a week, I guess, or maybe more, Ben Salter. Hey, Ben.
Good to be back. This is like our fourth week in a row of weekly shows, and we're still here.
Didn't go daily. That was probably
the daily shows. No, that's a bit much. There'd be only so much content. We'd have to go TikTok length, like 15 seconds of just like, here's our thing that we're complaining about this week or today. We're a weekly show, and that's how we like it, and that's how we hope you like it.
Because we only have enough news for like week to week. I have no news. I'm slowly on the mend from my back being utterly destroyed. So I'm like getting out more and doing some more things, but like not really. You apparently have some purchases that have rocked up.
I've got some purchases I'm going to bring up. Well, one of them is this very fun one, which I can't remember what it's called. It is a SN58 whatever SSD drive for my PS5, which I put in there. This is your recommendation, so it better work well.
It will.
And as everyone says, the hardest part is getting that damn cover off the PS5. Like, if you're worried about getting one of these and upgrading your storage, the screwing in of the SSD is easy. It's the ripping off of the plastic case, which Sony say you need to like grab it with two hands and twist or slide or something. Basically, just yank it until it like feels like it's going to break and keep going.
It took me like 20 minutes to get the case off when I bought the black set, the black fins to replace the white. It took me so long to get those off.
I did that too.
I did an SSD before, and I also got an SSD from Prime for the other PlayStation in my house, and I watched the PlayStation video, and it's super easy. Like, so you put the PlayStation logo on the ground, like face down, and like it says use two hands. Nah, your right hand on the right hand corner, and you just like grab it, lift it up as hard as you can without it like snapping, and then just like shove it to the left. Instantly off. Took 2 seconds.
You know what? That is what I did, but I didn't realize the sliding to the left part, because I was looking at like a paper image. I should have watched the video, and eventually it slides itself to the left, but I just did full power up with right hand, and eventually it slides up. Anyway, that's one. The funnier thing, you'd never guess this. This is what I impulse bought off eBay, a copy of The Godfather Xbox 360, $18. Pretty good deal.
I mean, like, yay.
I don't know why I bought that. Do you know why? Because I got into a rabbit hole of like mid-2000s licensed games. I don't know how I watched that on YouTube, but I did, and it got me to Googling some of them.
Yeah.
And I realized I owned this game on Wii, and I was like, I had that Godfather game. Maybe I should buy it again. It'll be super cheap. And then I found out there's a 360 version. And I thought, you know what's better than the Wii version? Definitely the 360 version.
Is it back and pat?
No waggle. No, I'm going to have to plug in my 360.
I was going to say,
I'm willing to do.
I have one if you needed one. It's right here.
No, I've got one.
Oh, I can't get it's connected, so I can't do that.
This is what I've gotten down to in the backlog times of 2022 is reaching to the 360 catalog. But you know what? It's fun to go back to this like different era of time sometimes to be like, this is what was a well-known quality. Doesn't even have a developer on the front. Just says EA. Like games don't do that now. And
that's like my favorite Buffy. The Buffy game on Xbox. Like someone at EA made it. I don't know who. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
There's no developer on here. I'll let you know how this game goes next episode if I actually find my 360 and play it. The other one is I realized I listened to Reggie's book via Audible, and one of the things he talks about was he was disappointed that Metroid Other M, which was the Wii like follow up to the Metroid Prime series, didn't do very well, and it's because they marketed it pretty poorly, and it's a bit of a weird game. And I realized like I have no memory of playing it. I think I may have reviewed it. So if I did, and you remember that, viewer or listener, let me know. But I can't remember it. So I tried to buy it off eBay. A bloke sent me instead a copy of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption in wrapped. And so I messaged him to say, mate, you've sent me the wrong game. And he's like, oh no, I've got like a whole stack of Metroid games. I sent you the wrong one. Anyway, he's going to send me the other one. I've never had this happen before.
Do you have to send the old one back?
I'll send it back, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
good
want
of you.
this. I already have this. To be clear, this Metroid Prime 3 is a better game than Other M, but I already have that, and I played it before.
All right.
so it's useless to me. This is just eBay tales of like sometimes you buy a game and a different one rocks up. Never had that happen. I never had one arrive. Look at this, it's wrapped. He bloody
It's
wrapped it.
mint in
It's not
in.
mint. It's
Oh.
clearly used and has been re-shrink wrapped,
Oh.
and is the wrong game. So yeah,
When I used
interesting.
to work at the video store, this is like in the 1990s, Ben. You were like -7 at this point.
No, I was there. I was there through the whole 90s, except for the first year.
So I used to work at Rogers Video, which is like Blockbuster or whatever, or Video Easy in Canada. And that was the best bit. Like, you could buy things from like Walmart, and if you didn't like it, it had like a shrink wrapper, and you could like fully shrink wrap it and make it look like you'd never opened it. And it's like, ugh, I don't like this. So we would,
So sneaky.
yeah, really good. I have a purchase that if we're talking purchases, and I fully need the Xbox 360 that's plugged in. That I can't show you, but it's like down there. We watched Pitch Black because Matt had never seen the first, I guess, of the Chronicles of Riddick. Do you remember when Vin Diesel wanted the Chronicles of Riddick to be a thing? Yeah. I like Pitch Black. I like the Riddick things. And there was a really, really good game on 360 called The Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena. And I think we'd had some wines and we were watching Pitch Black, and I'm like, I want to play that 360 game. And I didn't like think to look to see if it was back compat at all. I just bought it. It was like $20 still. I'm like, that's too much for a 360 game. But I bought it. It's not back compat, so if I want to play it, I have to play it on the 360, which is why it's connected again.
So same as me. You're in the 360, some type of like mid 2000s nostalgia. It's back.
I think it's just because there's not a lot of things coming out, really. So I'd be very curious if readers are doing the same kind of thing. Like, what's your weird thing you've had to dig out an old console for? What are you playing again, or playing for the first time, but you should have done it 20 years ago or something?
Well, some of them is just playing it again now. It's like, what? You don't want to tarnish any memory. So anything you really love, if you, not to bring it up yet again on this show, but if you love GoldenEye 64, do not play that, because it is a terrible experience now with your broken controller and your 12 frames a second. But in your mind, I'm sure it's great. But I think 360 games do actually hold up pretty well. So looking forward to some of these old school games. And I might see what else I can dig out. If you go real old, like you go that like PS1, 64 era or before, games are expensive. But 360 right now and PS3 right now is in that sweet spot of like, this is just old, but it's not like retro old yet. So they're all cheap, except for like King Kong, which is for some reason $100 on 360. I think
Easy achievements.
And I think it's because it is back compat, but it's not sold digitally. I don't know how that licensing arrangement has happened. There's like 3 or 4 games like that. There's that 50-cent game, which is the same.
Oh yeah, Blood on the Sand.
Couple. Yeah, a couple. And so if you just like eBay 360 games, they're all like $20 or less, and then King Kong and 50-cent pop up for like $150.
Well, like in the pandemic, I bought the 2009. That's when the movie came out. I think the game came out at the same time. That Bandai Namco, like Chris Pine Star Trek game, because I had like 3 achievements. I'm like, why didn't I finish this game? I should have just done it then. So I bought that for like $10. That's fine, but like that's not back compat either because of the licensing, I'd imagine. So the real trick, I guess, is making sure if you're going to go down this rabbit hole that you can buy one, that you have like a Xbox One or a Series X that has a disc drive, because if it is back compat and you buy a disc, you need to put the disc in. So if you have a Series S, too bad for you. Make sure it's back compat, or either have a 360 or PS3. Or because I can't imagine they'd be cheap right now on
the consoles,
eBay.
Do you know what? I reckon a 360 would be cheap, but a PS3 wouldn't be.
You talk for a bit. I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna mute myself so I can clickety clack. How about that?
Well, I think that for 2 reasons. I think because a lot of 360s are known to be unreliable, actually. So maybe they do cost more, because you'd only want to get a slim, not that horrible E model, which looks terrible. You'd want a slim if you're getting a 360, the reliable one. PS3, there's a bunch of models. There was that cheap, like super slim, that might be pretty cheap. The one that plays PS2 games, you'd have to mortgage your house to get. But like a A standard, bog standard PS3, I think it'll be cheap.
I totally lied.
What?
You can get an Xbox 360 Slim for like $60 on eBay used, of course, and you can get a PS3. PS3s are more expensive. Oh, you know why?
That'd be more.
Because you can't play
If
PS3
you can't
games
play them back to back.
on
How much are
anything
they?
else. Yeah, $100 for like the old like super. Remember the one with the like super rounded top, like the
The
first
original,
one,
but
the
I
old one.
guarantee you that's not the very first one that plays PS2 games. They would cost heaps.
True. Or 120 for a Slim. 150 is about the highest I can see. Just on
Remember,
the.
they're also Blu-ray players and 360 aren't, so that would have something to do with it potentially.
That's true.
Pretty cheap as far as consoles go. So now is the time. If you're looking to collect in that era, they're cheap. And actually, so are PS2 and Xbox games are pretty cheap as well. But I think they're probably going to skyrocket soon. PS2 is cheaper than Xbox just because there's way more of them.
Yeah.
So if you're going to collect, that'd be cheaper.
Well, there you go. We have played new games though, and we,
Yeah.
we sort of teased it last week, Ben. So you wrote the review. I will confess I've only played half of the game. I've played to the end of chapter 3. We're talking, of course, of As Dusk Falls, the game from Interior Night, Interior Night,
Something like that.
which is ex Quantic Dream people in a very similar kind of visual novel style game.
Yeah, it's an on game. It's very much like Stray last episode. It is $40, but you wouldn't buy it because it's on a subscription service, and that's the way to play this. It's not super long. It's about 6 hours. It's 6 chapters total. And I think they're about an hour each. So good length. I think any longer would have been too long. And the premise is pretty much, we're not going to go into the story. If you go read my review, I think I'm one of the only ones that barely mentions the story. I just speak about the experience.
Why
'Cause
would
don't-
you need to? But good, yes.
You don't
I
need to.
I
You don't
applaud
need
you, Ben. Well done.
So we're not even really going to get into it. The very rough gist is there's two families who get intertwined in a crime drama. One is just moving state, a couple with their child and their grandpa, and then three kind of young adult brothers who get caught up in a scheme which sees them make some bad decisions, and you need to work your way through this mess. In a visual novel, which is pretty much, I would say, 0% gameplay, maybe a little bit. You make a few choices, so that's pretty much what you're doing. You're selecting dialogue, you make a few choices that's kind of A or B, and you have to pick one. And then there's a few times where you kind of can explore a room for more details and find the thing you're meant to find. And that is the extent of gameplay. It's not like an Until Dawn or something like that where you walk around. That's all done through the kind of visual novel, and it's not animated. It's in full motion. It's kind of step by step, almost like a page turning, but somewhere between kind of like a short animation and a page turn. Like they kind of combine the ideas. So
Let's talk about that for just a second, if we could, because I hate it.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It looks like they've taken real actors and taken like photos of them, and then put them in one of those apps that makes it look prettier, like a painting or something. And then, like, so you will get a guy with like two like ways that he will look, and he's conveying emotion like that. But then in the background there's like smoke billowing and like full, like it's just going like completely animated, or like cars will drive up behind people and doors will swing open, and like that's fully animated. But then like the characters are just like, I have 3 poses. It's like one of those bad like iPhone like games that you'll play where it's just like you're talking to people and it just shows them like happy and then like angry, and like they get like the exclamation point above their head and go, ugh. I hate it so much. I don't know if it bothered you as much.
I wasn't a huge fan. So the other side to this is you can play it multiplayer in the sense that you can each kind of pick what to do, and if you all agree or you have a majority, that's what will happen in terms of a choice or which dialogue option to select. Or if you kind of get split 50-50, which is I think what will happen more often, because I think a lot of people will play this in like groups of 2 or 4. Then it kind of just picks one for you. And you have the choice to override. So for a certain amount of times, you can kind of say, lock out the other players and you get to pick what happens. So I played it with my partner who doesn't really play games at all. She's at the level of like Mario Kart 8 is too busy, too much happening. Give me Mario Kart 64. And then we play that and she's like, I can't remember how to play this. I'm done. So that's basically the degree of, but she got more into this than I did. And I think it's because of that. There's so little gameplay. It's just making choices. And you don't have to use a controller. You can use a companion app and use your phone. And it's a rare situation where the companion app actually works because it's just touchscreen controls. It's just mashing. It's kind of swiping on screen or selecting A, B, or C. And she said the same thing. To go back to the visual, she said, "Why is it broken? Like, why is it not like? Why isn't it moving properly?" And I can kind of get that if you're not expecting it, and it's like you don't play many games, and which I think is the audience for this. I think it's bringing the Wii audience, mum, dad, siblings, uncles, aunties who don't get into a lot of games, potentially the ones who actually pay for Game Pass in the household. They can actually play this and they can play it with you. But I think it's really jarring for them because it's kind of paced like a TV show, but it doesn't look like one at all. It looks like a broken TV show.
Yeah.
So it's an odd visual choice.
Yeah, and so if you use the companion app, it's kind of like you have a big like dual sense touchpad. So like if there's choices, you have to kind of like drag your finger to where it is on the screen, so you can see your little cursor on the TV, and you have to like move your hand to the right to get to the right choice, which is weird because the Xbox Game Pass version of the game through cloud is touchscreen enabled, and you don't have to do the dumb swipies. Like if you just see a thing, you just click the response you want, and it goes straight to it. And I don't know why they wouldn't have tried to incorporate that into the companion app. So it's just like there are QuickTime events where you need to swipe left or up or down or whatever, or like tap the screen. But then other times it's literally just like you have three things, like probably two on one side and one on the opposite side, and you just like you pick yes or no or maybe or whatever. And it's just like there's just some weird design things with this that I'm just like questioning. Not that like it's gonna detract from it too much, but it's just like that's weird. And that's how I've been playing Cloud, because when my back went so bad and I could do nothing but lie on my back, like I just like wanted to sit there and not do much. And like Matt was playing Fall Guys or whatever, and like I didn't want to move, but I didn't want to like leave. But I was getting a little bit bored, so I'm like, oh, I'll play through a chapter of thingy on Cloud, and it worked really well. But like it's heavy, man. Like we're not going to get into what is heavy about it, but like everything that could possibly go wrong for groups of people goes wrong, or just like every trope that you could imagine just like gets thrown into the mix. It's like it was heavy. I didn't want to have to go through it all in one big hit, because I'm just like, I'm done with that for a while. Like that's enough doom and gloom for me.
Yeah, I think it's getting it kind of that TV style chunks of kind of an hour to be 6 episodes is good from that point of view, in that you shouldn't play it. There's a clear end point, and you shouldn't play all in one go. And I don't think you could. Like it's too draining. But also like to actually finish it, and we had to do it in the time frame before it came out. But like it did become a bit of a drag in the sense of like we want to finish it because they all kind of end on a good teaser, but not TV level. But like it's still like I want to see what happens next. But then to think, oh, it's going to take another hour. And like to do that at after you've gotten home, you've done what you need to do, you've made dinner or whatever, and you sit down on the couch and you get the whole family together because you're all playing it together. It's like a TV show you're watching together. You can't just do it on your own. It's hard to actually find that time again, and I think that's where the multiplayer doesn't work. So it kind of sells it like Jackbox, in that your friends can come over and you can you can have up to 8 players. You don't need 8 controllers because you can use your phone. One, nobody is downloading some companion app to play a game on your TV. Like that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
It should have just been in browser with a code like Jackbox is. 2, it's not going to work because you're not going to play a 6-hour game. Your mates come over and you're going to play for 6 hours. It's not going to happen. It's not engaging enough. It's too draining. There's no gameplay.
And you can start at chapter 5, but who's gonna like who's that guy? What's going on here? What's like why am I invested? Sorry.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then you're so that pretty much just leaves the people you live with to play with. But then I've just explained why that's difficult. Getting everyone together, you kind of get to the point where you probably what you've done. You're halfway through, but finding that time when we're all free together to do the next chapter is hard. And then you can play online, but it kind of defeats the purpose. Like you may as well just play it by yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the multiplayer side of it is kind of a good add-on, and they kind of sell it as like when they gave it to us to review, they said you really have to play it multiplayer. I disagree. I think it's a good feature. It's great if you want to get your parents or someone in or your housemate or your partner who you live with who doesn't normally play games and they're into it, and you can find the time, and they are part of the reason of why you play it because they get into it as well. But if that doesn't happen, the multiplayer is not worth it. So can be played solo, of course. You don't need to play like that.
Yeah. There's some cool like multiplayer ideas. So I don't know, like if we're talking visual novel, you have like the Man of Medan dark picture style where like each person gets a character and assign characters to Ben and the characters to Steve, and like I get to dictate what Bob does and you get to dictate what Tim does. Um, it's more like group consensus, kind of like that Jackbox
Yeah.
style. It's hard not to say Jackbox because it's very like that, but the subject matter is so heavy. It's kind of like it's catering to like the streamers who want to have like a group of 20 or 30 or hundreds of people watching so they can vote on what happens. But like, do you want to trust these like really heavy decisions to like group consensus, because they're all just going to pick the dick move? And like, I don't know, it seems weird in that sense. There's a cool idea of like overrides. So if the two of us were playing, and because like if you and I are both playing, we're not controlling a specific person, but we both get to decide whoever is making the choice at that time, like what they choose. And if
Yeah.
we both vote something else, or like if the group votes A and you're very dead set that you want B to happen, you can like throw an override in, and you have like a finite amount of those. So that's kind of cool. But like Matt and I tried really quickly just because I wanted to see how it worked, and we basically just like burned through those 3 overrides that we had, like trying to trump each other on the same choice. So like then that is no longer a thing. You can turn on infinite overrides, I guess, I think. But like it's like cool ideas that aren't fully formed, that don't quite
And
work.
because as you said, because of how the cursor system works, although hot tip, if you're playing with the controller, you can use the D-pad just to move between answers. You don't need to use your cursor. Um, but you see what other players do. So we often had like someone would pick first just because they got to the answer first or they thought about it quicker. And the other person would just pick that as well because it's quicker. Because when you're only playing with 2 people, it does like a 50-50 and it does like a little animation of which one's it going to be. And that just adds an extra 10 seconds, which I don't have. So it's kind of like, oh, whatever. You already picked one. I don't care that much. There was the odd one where it's like, no, I want to see this other one, but like
Yeah.
not often. Um, but they do make differences. So there are clear moments when it's like you need to be united because this is going to make a big story difference. And then there are smaller ones which, when you see the branching tree at the end of each chapter, you've selected a dialogue option or you've missed a quick time event or something, and it does make a difference.
Yeah.
Surprising amount to the story, and I think it displays that well. Because in like Life is Strange or something where it's kind of like you had 2 or 3 options, X amount of players did this one, and it doesn't really show you what the difference was for choosing that. But this kind of shows you the way that the story branches in that, like, well, this person, something happened to this character, so that's why you've now gone off on this branch.
Yeah.
And it was all because you tripped here because you missed one quick time event. So even though we made that seem like it wasn't a big deal, actually that was a big deal. I think it does that quite well. Like it's more engaging from that side of it than a lot of games like this.
It really is, and if you've played like Detroit Become Human, it's that same kind of. It's basically like it's storyboarded for you. It like you can zoom out and see like all the different paths, and if you haven't hit a path, you can kind of see where the path would go, but you don't know the details of it. And you can replay at specific points to kind of try to hit those new paths. The thing that annoys me about that is that you can't skip anything that you've seen before. So if you want to try to like get all the different paths or see what would have happened if you did this, like there's an exploration mode where it's not like going to rewrite your save. You can just kind of go through it and see how it works. And like if you're going for achievements, because it's me, like half the time if you pick A, there's an achievement for A, but there's an achievement for B. So like if you're a completionist, you're going to go back and like do B. You literally just have to play the game in 1-to-1 time. And like I just wish, even with like the quarry, like I've burned through the quarry to get all the achievements in two generations of the damn game. Like could we just, I've seen this, can I just skip to the bit where like it's new? That would be great. Which is such as like a specific nitpick, but a me nitpick anyway.
Yeah, that's always part of it. But again, we always kind of just loop back to it's a bit of a different type of game, and that's good for this type of service in that it's they'll pretend like they were making their own thing and they just happen to go on Game Pass, but it's so Xbox, like it's so we're just trying a different type of game, and we don't want to put all the same things on this service, and it's a classic Game Pass game essentially. And I think that's what the same as Stray. I think it's gotten more kind of attention because of that. One, because there's nothing else been coming out, and two, because it suits that subscription. You can just have a crack.
Exactly. So, recommended if you already have access to it. I don't know if
Yes.
I'd recommend it otherwise.
Wouldn't pay for it.
Nah.
But that's pretty much every game that's not on Game Pass. So
Yes. Well, there you go. Let's get into. We have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if we're being generous, to talk about our main topic, that being remakes. And there's a lot to unpack. Like, where do you want to start? I guess.
Well, so this is there's a lot of dot points here. We don't need to go through them all. It's a general. This is just my brain dump of. It's a good time.
It's a big brain dump. If
what's happening?
Yeah.
It is. This is just. It's mainly notes for me. It's a lot's happening with remakes and remasters at the moment. There's one in particular which has created somewhat of a controversy. And it's probably a good time to look back over like what we used to expect from a remake / remaster and what we expect now. So the game in question is The Last of Us, the third edition, which is launching this September or something. Third version of this game in 9 years. It's been remastered once, and this one they haven't really used a term. I think they kind of say remake, but it's probably more like a remaster. The gist is it's a hefty visual overhaul. Like it looks very different. Gameplay wise, pretty similar. And that's what's annoyed people in that a remake is normally kind of both of those things. It's kind of new visuals and new gameplay and kind of rebuilt. And that doesn't seem to be the case here. So if we look back a bit, I would say probably Mass Effect Limited Edition is the kind of the benchmark for like a collection of remasters. That's what we use now. And it's kind of similar to like the Nathan Drake collection or the Crash games that got collected in that it's the same game. It's just got prettied up and you get a bunch of them together for like $100.
Yeah, like $300 of value technically, maybe in like in a $100 package. Yeah, correct.
But not much has been done to gameplay. Like maybe it's just been tidied up. There's been some balancing. Pretty much the same game though. Maybe just a modern control scheme. But yeah, it's like that's a pretty good value package, I think, overall. Yeah,
especially if you haven't played them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's who a lot of these are for, really. Like, there's not that many, which are for people who have played it. So I suppose the point is there's a scale of remakes or remasters. It's not all like this is one thing and it's worth that. Like it's hard to know exactly what the value is. Because if you went to like the other side of it, I think the game that started it was Gears of War Ultimate last gen, which was like a 2014 or 15 game. And it was like, that was back when games would come out as a remaster, as Last of Us Remastered 1, whatever it was called, did. And it was just the same game, up-resed, and maybe a higher frame rate. And then Gears came out, and it was like, you know what, we can actually improve the assets as well, like quite considerably, and make this look great. And then it came with all the 360 games as well. So it was like a bunch of games for a cheaper price. It was like $60 or $70 or something Australian. And I think at the time people were like, this is quite different to what we were getting, and this is the new benchmark of remaster. And that probably is what we're at still. That's a remaster.
Yeah.
But close to a remake. And then you get the full remake. So there's probably a few versions of that we've had recently. The ones that stand out, Final Fantasy VII, which is taking kind of the inspiration of a PS1 game, turning it into a modern game, totally changing the gameplay, but making something new. In a sense, we have gone the other way from the collection in that what was once one game has now become three. So you're going to have to spend hundreds of dollars to get this whole thing and wait years. But it's still a pretty good experience, and I think we're happy with that. The other two that you compare it to is probably like Link's Awakening, which was a Switch game from a GBA game, or not GB Color game. And that was kind of different in that it's visually totally new, but it still kind of played a lot like that Game Boy game. So like we haven't had that style of remake very often, and that's so Nintendo to just be like, let's kind of do it and kind of not. But I think it's still worth it. Like it's a way to bring people to something like that who would not play that Game Boy game because it's so old school. The original version is black and white. Like it's hard to play that now, but the gameplay still holds up. So it's a way to actually experience that. Worthwhile. And then probably your favorite of this list, Resident Evil 2, which is, again, it's kind of in the middle of those two. It's new gameplay, new visuals, but it's still one game. And it kind of brings it to modern Resident Evil style in that not the first person modern, but the era before that, the over the shoulder. And it was a really good remake.
I have a lot to say about the Resident Evil remakes. So I guess, well, Capcom loves re-releasing some games, and they like remaking now, I guess, Resident Evil. And it started with the PS1 to the the PS1 to the GameCube version of Resident
Hmm.
Evil. But that was like a weird remake in that like
That was a remake.
it's static backgrounds and 3D models and things, and like it looked really really good, but it looked so much better on GameCube as compared to the PS1. But the gameplay in terms of fixed camera angles and tank controls was all the same, but just like very like glow upped.
Yeah.
And
So
they
that's probably comparable to the Zelda example there. Like it looks
exactly.
way better, but play is pretty much the same.
And then Resident Evil 2 and 3 are completely different. So it's gotten away from the PS1. They were both PS1 games. Era like fixed camera angles, tank controls. It's gone for like the over the shoulder, like completely modernized controls, like different game, same ish storyline. But that's all kind of coming to a head now because Resident Evil 4 sort of went to that behind the shoulder camera, like kind of modernized controls, still like really tanky controls when you compare then to now. But like
Yeah.
now we've gone from like these weird fixed camera angle games that needed to be redone to RE4 is coming out soonish and is essentially the same kind of game with better controls, but is less of a change. Though they're thinking of, from what the rumors say, going back to like the pre-dev production and making it more like spooky and creepy and ooky and less like action orientated. So it's like yeah, like the Resident Evil remake situation is like the entire gamut. But anyway, I digress. Back to
It's
you.
all of it. Well, that's a great example of like what we used to accept and pay for. We've kind of moved away from. So Resident Evil 4 is like the king of re-releases, and so like it was kind of like it's a GameCube, PS2 game, and then there was the Wii version, which is like a certainly not a remaster, but it kind of was in that like it had a whole new control scheme, which so it was the opposite, like visually pretty similar to the GameCube game, just in widescreen, but it had a better control scheme, which like we haven't really seen that from any other games. And then it got released in HD and again on Xbox One, and it's like you bought it 5 times, and now they're finally like, okay, we'll remake it, which is kind of like an extended version of what's happening with Last of Us. It's like we've remastered it once, now we're going to kind of remake it. I bet you they remake this game again with remade gameplay in 10 years.
Oh yeah.
But so yeah, that's the whole scale there. The last one, very quickly, is pretty much just up-res re-releases, which is, if you recall, that's what remasters were on like Xbox, what even 360, PS3. Like you get the HD versions of PS2 games. Resident Evil was a classic one for doing it. I think Code Veronica had like HD
Yep.
version on 360. Same game, just up-res.
The Rare
And then
Collection or whatever that was called on
yeah,
Xbox as well.
yeah, rarely replay.
Yeah.
So yeah, same thing happened early Xbox One and PS4 days. It was just like, here's the same old game. It runs at a higher resolution now. We used to be 720, now we're 1080, and some of those games had a higher frame rate. And then like that does not pass at all for a remaster, let alone a remake. Now we would never pay for that. And Xbox has since come out and been like, actually, we can just apply that to our old games for free. You can just get like frame rate boosts on some games, and you can play original Xbox games displaying at 4K on your Xbox Series X. Um, and then you get Nintendo, who's kind of like, we've released Ocarina of Time in HD for the first time, and it's just the emulated game in 720p with the fog missing, and like, oh come on. Anyway, they're working on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
But there was a time when that was considered like that's fine. But now we've kind of gotten through to that like Resident Evil 2, Final Fantasy 7 level of like, I think that's a remake. And so I think to circle it all back, I don't think what we've seen from The Last of Us is really a remake. But they can't call it remastered because there's already a game called The Last of Us Remastered. And I think that's the main issue here. I don't know why they picked this game. There were rumors that whoever the studio behind this, which is not Naughty Dog, it's one of those many remastering studios.
Nix's,
Originally,
I think. Anyway.
something like that.
Yeah.
Originally pitched to remake the first Uncharted game, which I think would have made a lot more sense. And Sony didn't accept that pitch because it would have been too hard. They wanted to just do a visual remaster, not a full gameplay remaster. And they said that game's too old. Like we've already remastered it. To try to just pretty it up, you need to do too much of the gameplay. Because it came out early PS3 days, whereas Last of Us was like the very last year. It plays pretty well still. But that just circles back around to, why do we need it then? There's already a version that runs pretty well on your PS5. the simple answer is it's not really for us. It's for the people who didn't play it the first time around.
The simple answer is money.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a cash grab. I think there's, as we've just quickly run through, what we've expected from a remaster or a remake has changed over the last kind of 10, 15 years. And simply re-releasing a game on the next platform for years was fine. You can just release a new version that runs slightly better or has different controls or whatever new features been added. Nintendo's still doing that in the fact that no one bought a Wii U, so they could just re-release all their games like untouched and make millions. Like Mario Kart 8 is one of the best-selling games ever of this generation, and it's actually from the last one. So like it can be done, but I think Sony's trying to do this in a time where they've increased their recommended price of games from 100 Australian to 125, and I think that the fact that they're charging more than they charged for it originally, that they haven't done that much to it. But then on the flip side, it does look good. Like it kind of like I would love to play this version of it, but I'm not gonna pay that much for a game that's the same game. Like we've already got this new benchmark, and you're right to bring up Resident Evil, because where does Capcom go with? They've done a good job with 2. They did a lesser job with 3. So it's kind of if they want to keep doing this, it's kind of make or break. Like 4 is one of their kind of highest, most acclaimed games of all time. They don't want to stuff it up. Like,
yeah. Well, and like so many things to talk about, and because you said Resident Evil, that's where my brain is. Like they have Code Veronica left to do, really. I'd argue that 5 is still kind of like the tank style controls, but it's still like far more modern than even 4 was. Because I think it's been so long. I think you can run and shoot. Is that right? Probably you can. I don't think you can actually, but it felt better. Like I think you had right stick thumb control, and on Resident Evil 4 you didn't. Like you're just driving with one thumb.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if they'd go Code Veronica 5, or if they'd even go like Code Veronica and then consider remaking the original Resident Evil again to be more in line with like the first ones. And but, like, is that a good thing though? Because those I know I'm old, but like those games, I grew up on those games. They were like the pinnacle of gaming, and they're so outdated now. Like I understand why they're not, like you would play it now and be like, oh, this is gross. But like maybe some things are just kind of left alone, and just make new things. Do a 7 and an 8 and do a first person thing. Like try new things. Like just let this sit like as the start of this amazing thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I think remaking the first one would be worthwhile in that they've done 2, 3, 4, and then 1 now feels super dated compared to them, and it's still on the same platforms. Like they've released that on current gen. It feels somewhat out of place.
But do you risk Resident Evil 3ing it?
Yeah, that's the problem. And they've kind of they've done too many too quickly. And so they'll probably get to the point of 4 needs to be amazing, otherwise they're going to get the same backlash that Sony's getting, in that why do you keep remaking things that aren't that old? And I think 1, 2, 3 kind of felt pretty old, like their PS1 games, but 4 has been re-released so many times that it doesn't feel as ancient. Like there's a HD version you can play on your current gen consoles right now, which wasn't true for Resident Evil 2 and 3.
As long as you tape down your right hand and don't use it.
Yeah.
Like literally, or like your thumb anyway, because you don't use your thumb. Anyway, yeah.
I feel like, did they ever, maybe they did adjust that on one of the, I can't remember.
No, they didn't, because I replayed it to finish the professional mode to get the last achievement, because again, it's me. You just can't use your right thumb, and your muscle memory is so ingrained in like camera, it hurts to get used to it.
But there's lots to unpack there. I think we'll leave Last of Us until it actually comes out to pass judgment. It seems like potentially we didn't need that yet, and that seems to be the general consensus online. But we'll wait and see. It's certainly the flavor of today.
The certain positive to take away from everything is that, because it's kind of it's like The Last of Us in The Last of Us Part 2's engine. All the bells and whistles, like in terms of accessibility, are available. And like people who need those accessibility options to play video games, of course, like excellent. They get that. I don't think that that's really Sony's main aim. So like it's a nice consequence, but it wasn't the goal. But like for people who haven't been able to play and get to, that's cool. Like, so like that's thumbs up for that.
If you just haven't gotten around to play it yet, The new version will cost $125. The original version is available right now for $10, and it also runs on your PS5. And the gameplay will be pretty similar,
It's very
if
good.
not identical. So you could always just play that. It's a matter of how much you want to pay and which experience do you want. The other news in remakes this week is that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic has been delayed indefinitely. And
Allegedly. But yes.
sounds pretty legit. We've got devs saying it was meant to be out this year, even though it didn't have a date. And at its current state, 2025 would be more realistic, if not later. This game has been given to Aspire, who is best known, actually only known for porting games. Like, that's what they do. Originally, they ported everything to like Mac pretty much, and more recently to consoles. Heaps of old Star Wars games to Switch recently. They've kind of made a niche there, and they've got a thing. So
Well,
why they went to make like remake and do a new game, like that's not their thing. It's an odd choice.
Well, yeah, and even one of their ports to Switch, I think it was the KOTOR port to Switch. Like there was a bug that meant you couldn't finish the game, so they don't have a good track record on porting things. So I'm not sure how they're going to do on remaking things. And the scuttlebutt is they're not doing a very good job of it. So it's been delayed 3 years, 3 years indefinitely, potentially.
Yeah, this has delayed to the point that it's restarting development and a new developer written all over it. Like, I can't see this really continuing with such a delay. I think the directors have left or something. Like,
Two got terminated. So
uh,
hasta la
don't expect to
vista.
play this anytime soon. Sounds like it's in big trouble, but it kind of all turns around to what do we think of outsourcing these remakes? Like we just saw last year, Grove Street Games attempt to do the GTA trilogy, and they did a bad job initially. There's no getting around that. They've improved it since, but like they were just the wrong studio. They're a mobile studio. Doing 3 console games didn't make sense. I think Aspire doesn't make sense here.
Yeah. With the name Grove Street, does Rockstar own them? I don't think they do.
Yeah.
Oh, they do?
They do.
Okay. Well,
They
then
bought them in there.
that's awkward because and this is your note. I'm just stealing it. We've talked about Nix's. We've talked about in past Bluepoint, who did like the Demon Souls remake and a whole bunch of other remakes or remasters. Yeah, they did such a good job, and so did Nix's, that Sony acquired them. So you can either kind of do something poorly and scrape by, or you can do something and be known for doing that well to the point where Sony wants to throw money at you to either do more of that or to branch out and even make your own kind of stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think one of the obvious examples recently of this is that so the last 4 generations, or the first 4 generations of the Pokemon games have all been remade because Nintendo loves just rehashing these games. But the remakes have been good. Like, they've been on later generation platforms. Like, it's made sense to do them. And they were all made by the original developer up until the most recent one. And they were all good. And that most recent one being Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It's okay, but like that, most of the Pokemon games are great. This is okay at best. Like, it just feels out. The whole point of remaking them is they kind of brought them up to speed of like the later games. This one feels like that bare bones kind of remaster style of like it's the same gameplay. We haven't really updated it. It's kind of like on a few generations ago style. Doesn't really make sense to then remake that. And that's all been done by a new developer, which has kind of massively downgraded the quality of it. So how much would we prefer the original studio? Like, would you prefer Naughty Dog to be remaking Last of Us? Would you prefer BioWare to be doing Knights of the Old Republic? Is that even feasible?
Probably not, for like a number of reasons. I guess like we'll use Naughty Dog as the example here. Like, a lot of the stuff they would have done at the time, like, is that useful now? Like, the textures that they created are so outdated and like are nowhere near 4K. Like, I don't know how viable they are to use or leverage in any way. So you're kind of just doing everything from scratch. So like, do you need Naughty Dog to do that, or can you just get someone cheaper to do that? And the other thing is, like, if you worked on the original Last of Us and maybe had a hand in the remaster, like, do you want to work on it again for the 3rd time in 9 years? Probably not. Or people have like left, so it's not even like actually Naughty Dog, air quotes, like working on it. There's all these things. Like, I think, and like Bungie's a really good example. Like, they left Microsoft because they didn't want to do Halo anymore, and they did something else. And Then they got in a fight with Activision Blizzard about Bungie to like a certain extent. So it's like, do you just want to keep dragging through the mud of one thing, or do you want to like do something cool and new? And I would imagine that most people would want to look forward instead of backward.
Yeah. So it probably all comes down to the publisher then. That's who it's on. They need to pick the right studio to remake it, knowing it's probably not going to be the original. It's becoming less and less likely. And I mean, we just talked about some examples of big publishers picking the wrong ones. So it probably should just be specialist remaking studios. That's what they should specialize in. Aspire has not turned out to be one of those. They're potentially a specialist porting studio, and that's quite different to a remake. So stick in your lane, I guess, is probably the message here.
Well, and you can still play KOTOR on PC, so you just don't get to on PlayStation 5. At least
play it
not,
on Switch,
not
but
yet.
You can't finish it. A long game. It's a long game. I think that's us for this week. It's been a long podcast.
What's your favorite remaster? How about that?
Well, Mass Effect, because I just played through the trilogy. It's taken me a year, and I finally finished. But I didn't get the achievement for one character through all of them. It didn't pop.
Oh, how do you fix that? I don't know if you do.
Well, unless I didn't import because it was so long ago once. No, but I would have. I can't understand why I didn't pop. I changed my class each game, but I didn't think that would affect it. Like,
no, I changed. I did that. I think I got that achievement then. So I don't.
I could just do the last mission. I could do the last mission again, but I got the achievement for like doing the end of Mass Effect 3. Like, so I don't know why I didn't.
No.
Anyway, very annoying, but that's a good remaster. It's like it still feels like an old game, but it's a fun way to play it. Yeah, I haven't played that many recently. Besides that, you?
You can probably guess which franchise I'm going to pick. I don't know if I could actually toss up between the GameCube Resident Evil and the new Resident Evil 2 because they're both really, really good in drastically different ways and are really like the original RE looked amazing, or not the original RE, the original RE remake looked amazing and brought in that whole like sub Lisa Trevor plot that like wasn't in the original, but like RE2 is just like it's chef's kiss. So I'm just gonna say both.
That's my favorite. If Mass Effect, my favorite remaster collection, but
I said remastered.
Is my favorite remake.
My favorite remaster is The Last of Us remastered.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know because how do we find you on the internet, Ben?
I am Ben_Salter on Twitter, and I don't think I've anything to say at the moment. There's I'll let you know how Godfather is on 360. That'll be my next tweet.
All right. Well, I doubt that, but I'm looking forward to talking about it. I'll let you know how Chronicles of Riddick Dark Athena goes on Wright AU on social media. I don't know what's going on. There's stuff happening. We're going to Italy in the end of September. Yeah. So
as in Stevivor, the Survivor team.
No,
Italy?
No, just my husband and I are going to Italy.
He's going on tour.
Oh,
anyway, all right.
If you want to come, by all means. You're paying your own way.
That's where James May's going in his new TV show, in his Amazon show. Anyway,
well, I'll hang out with Italy. I'll hang out with him. Rome, Venice, Florence, Cinque Terre, Venice. Did I say Venice? Also Venice. So if you have any tips, by all means, send them through.
Yeah, my tip is we went on a wine tour in Tuscany. One, very good red wine, and two, we had like you're at well, this is pre-COVID, so maybe you're like meters apart now, but at the time you're on like shared tables with people, and all the Americans we were with, like 21, like we don't like wine, and they just gave it all to us, and it was like excellent wine. So go wine tasting with some dumb Americans.
Done.
No offense, Americans.
Not going to Tuscany, but I'm sure that'll be everywhere else. Send your tips. Send your travel tips. Send your backwards compatible or not old game things. Tell us your favorite remake or remaster.
This is my one good Italian tip that I remembered from a walking tour guide.
Okay.
Forget the ending of the show. This is a goodie. Gelati tip. Listen up, listeners. The ones where they have like the big, massive mound of gelati that looks pretty and is great, don't eat that. That's trash. You need to eat the ones where they've covered it in like the silver lid and you can't even see it. That's the good stuff. The other ones are all made for tourists and it's like just a big sculpture that looks great, but it's not actually, it's no good.
I have to do my Duolingo. I've been doing Duolingo in Italian. I can say the boy eats an apple because that's definitely something that's going to help me on my trip. Exactly. Il ragazza, yeah. Mange is something about an apple. Why would I remember the word for apple? It's stupid.
Need some work.
Yeah.
We just told me you could do it. Anyway, okay.
Arrivederci, Ben.
That's all you need.
All right. Bye.